go ahead and get started. So I got a few announcements. First off, of course, there have been some people who have added the class, so if that's you, really it should be pretty easy to catch up because I record everything and put all the videos of every class meeting online as well as other stuff on the course webpage. So get the course webpage from somebody, ask the person sitting next to you if you need to, or it's actually kind of up on the screen right now. So get the course webpage. If this is your first day here, there is a homework assignment that's due on Thursday. So I know that's only 2 days. That's actually enough time. It's not that bad of a homework assignment. And to kind of help you with that homework assignment, today is directly related to that material. So we're going to do some practice problems in class today that's directly related to that homework assignment. What else? The next homework assignment is coming. I'm going to be kind of rapid fire with these things. So your first lab is actually coming up very soon. Probably Thursday. I'm really, really hoping it'll be assigned on Thursday. It'll be assigned on Tuesday at the absolute latest. So, if you haven't found a partner yet, you might want to think about doing that sometime over the next couple of days. You can always post on Piazza if you're looking for people, or, there'll be time in class where you can talk to your neighbors and find partners to work on these labs together. And Thursday is probably a pretty good class to come to because I will kind of do a brief introduction of the homework assignment and give you kind of a heads up over what I expect and stuff like that. As far as today, it would be like last Thursday. I do have kind of a special surprise at the very end, which I think will be a lot of fun for us to play around with. But as I will always do, I will first open the floor for questions. Anybody have any questions for me about anything? The material, the homework? Yeah, in the back. I actually don't know the answer to that question. But if you send me an email with your name, I can check to see if you're on my list of people who have done stuff or not, and that would answer that question for you. Without looking at it, I can't tell without looking it up. Yeah. Yes.
Are nibbles only useful in like an intuitive sense because they're facility from binary to hex and vice versa, or are there like any real computing advantages?
That's a great question. So the question was about nibbles. Is there any computing advantage, or is it just the basis of hexadecimal? And it really is just really a nice vehicle for us to talk about hex. So we are going to be using nibbles quite a bit later on today. But the computer itself doesn't really care about nibbles. The computer is going to do things potentially on the bit level, or on the byte level, or in larger chunks of bytes. Right? Nibbles, not so much. I guess historically, when we had much less powerful machines, nibbles were more active than that anymore. Yeah, great question. Any other questions I can answer right now? Yes?
So I know people have been asking on Piazza about it, but for question 7 on homework,
Yes.
money. I'm still confused on what you're asking.
Okay.
For that problem.
Sure. Yeah, I have gotten some questions about that. Let me do my best to try and explain what I need on question 7 right now. So question 7, I don't care about what the actual binary values themselves are. The question's asking for a number of bits. So what those bits actually are, I don't care, right? That doesn't matter to me. I want to know the number of bits. So part A, I think, asks you to represent configurations from $0 to $10 in $1 increments, using only $1 bills, right? So that's 11 possible configurations, right? Because we count from 0. 11 possible configurations. So the answer to number A is how many bits do I need to represent at least 11 things? What's the answer to that? 4, right? 4 bits goes up to what? How many things can I represent with 4 bits?
15 including 0.
15 including 0, so 16 total configurations, right? So I can represent 16 things, or 2 to the 4th power, right, is how many things I can represent with 4 bits. So that is the answer to part A. So then for B, C, and D, figure out how many possible combinations there are, right? Once you have that total, figure out how many bits are necessary to represent those numbers of combinations. The reason that I asked you to do this problem, and we're going to see some other versions of this actually today, I hope. I hope I'll have time to get to that. The reason I ask you to do problems like this is a concept called information. How much information is being passed, right? We know that under this particular system, we have X number of ways of configuring things. So when I tell you a particular value, I'm passing you 4 bits of information because that's the minimum number of bits that I need to represent one of those particular combinations. I'm hoping this will kind of make some more sense when we take a look at some practice problems later on today. But does that help? Yeah, good. Any other questions? Yes? I'm sorry? The Zybook. Okay, yeah, I can pull that up. One. 1.7. Sure. Five and 6. Okay. So evaluate. Assume A is false and B is true. Type answers as true or false. 5 and 6. So A is false and B is true. So A and B evaluates to be false, and that's what they've given to you here for number 5, right? They've given you that part. They've already solved that for you. So they're asking you basically what is not A. Not A then is the other missing piece, right? Which is true, right? So true should hopefully get it done, right? It is a little strange. I agree. As I said before, there are some things with the Zybook that are not perfect. Actually, although I'm glad you brought this up, at the bottom of every one of these activities is a feedback button, so you can leave some comments. In fact, I'll just go ahead and leave this one right now. 5 and 6 are a bit. And then you can send the feedback. Also, there's like a little rating system down here too, from 1 to 5, that you can leave if you want as well on these. But so please, I can't read these, right? I don't send those to me. Those go to the textbook developer. So please submit those if you find more strange things like that. Yeah. Any other questions I can answer? All right. I brought some review problems. You probably already have a good idea of what these review problems are going to look like if you've already taken a glance at the homework. If you haven't taken a glance at the homework, that's perfectly fine. These review problems should give you a pretty good head start on that homework assignment. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's some review questions. These are decimal values, base 10 values. So your first task is to convert them into binary and hexadecimal. I'll be around. Elliot is a TA who's joined us today. He'll be around if you have questions.
Why would you do that to us? Why would you do that?
You'll see.
Basically, yeah. That hard. I mean, it's just because it doesn't work.
Is it going to be something like 1,0,0,0
Maybe.
Because I don't remember it though.
You can use a calculator
So
if you want.
That's probably. Yeah.
It's just like
What's that?
It's 31 points. It's the maximum computational.
Yep. It's a bunch of ones.
Yeah.
See? It's not that bad.
If you recognize it. The last one was really. The last one was so bad. Yeah, comparatively, it was like.
yeah.
Oh wait. There's just there's one. Two inverters. I mean, two inverters you see as whenever we see the things like this. Yeah. It says like it's a man where you add the inverter becomes an and gate. So it was an and gate to an inverter.
Yeah.
So either it's gonna. So if you do the and gate to inverter, it's gonna be one inverter.
Yeah, there's actually
And there's another one. Plus another inverter.
So it just.
That's if you can use the crystal.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
There are complete reasons.
Yeah, but that was
Here's how it's you did it.
Yeah, I did it actually too because it was like this was an actual sign.
I looked it up online.
Oh, well, this? Yes, but now we set it up.
It's more to, I guess, the ambiguity of how it's
I mean, that's what I'm
It's not something that's used particularly often. Yeah. So it's really just ambiguous.
That's gonna work out.
Sure.
No, what I'm saying is that that's the thing. Good luck with that. That can be range. Okay, how do you do that?
I don't. I think they're one. I think they're one is the number one.
What you
No,
no, no, it's really
it's 256 plus 4.
Oh, plus 4.
so looking up in October,
Yeah. Well, so actually, what I just did, my assumption was X will take exactly 1. So
It'd be 2 0 again, right?
so yes.
Yeah. Should we do these? Do you want to do them like one binary and then I think someone's going to do these to us. Because I thought this was comics.
It's definitely maybe Google Cloud is definitely out there, and I would not Yeah. Yep. And you know,
Power.
so you could also see the same result.
Wait, is this from like the last one? We should track that off.
it's not 16.
Yeah, that'd be a calculator. Or
And in this case, I've already ordered one of the two.
So you have to either be allowed a calculator or I'll make sure that I mean, like the first two, doable, right?
Definitely.
Second two,
Yeah.
maybe not so much.
I think we should start memorizing my powers.
Yeah, powers of 16 are a little
Then
I didn't want to write this down.
It's just one short.
Yeah.
16 squared is
It's actually 2 to the third, 2 squared.
I mean,
256.
and then
And then a very large number. That's all I got. I mean, I've only got that, which shows you that maybe memorizing them isn't all that.
actually, wait, yeah, that makes no sense. It's not just addition of powers, you know, 14 minus 16.
That's all I was
Yeah.
saying.
Oh, the same.
Actually,
Good college try.
Really, you know, if I ask you to do something like this, the question is, do I convert it directly to hex, or maybe I convert it to binary and then to hex? I think that's a little easier. Alrighty, let's go ahead and start talking about these. Let me grab a marker here. Somebody should be able to tell me the answers for these first two, at least. I hope you can tell me the answers for the first one. Let me tell me what's right up on the board. Yeah.
you want binary or not?
Let's start with binary.
Okay. 1, 0, 0, 0.
Sorry. I'll start. 1, 0, 0, 0,
0, 0,
0, 0,
1, 0,
1, 0, 0. Yep. I knew this was going to be an easy one, right? Because what's the closest power of 2 to this guy? 256 is pretty close, right? That's a power of 2. That's 2 to the 8th power, right? So 256 goes in, and then I just have 4 left over, which is actually also a nice power of 2. So I just need those 2 ones there, right? So I want to do this to hex then. I was just talking to somebody about this, right? If I give you a problem like this and I ask you to convert to hex, the question is, do I try to convert it directly to hex, or do I convert it to binary and then convert to hex? Which is going to be easier? Binary first, right? Always go to binary first and then go to hex, because what's the rule? What do I do to convert this into hex? What am I looking for? 4s. I'm looking for blocks of 4. So here's 4 bits, 0, 1, 0, 0. What is that in hex? This first block right here. What is that in hex? I heard somebody say it. 4, right? 1, 0, 0, 0. What's this in hex? Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I skipped one. Thank you. My bad. Yeah, this is a challenging one, right? And this is really challenging as well. 104 is this in hex, right? That's a piece of cake. All right, 131. You can tell me what this is in binary. You takers? Yeah.
1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1.
0, 0, 1, 1. Is that right? How many zeros? 5? 5 zeros, and then 2 ones. So let's see. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, right? 128 plus 3 gets me 131. Perfect. And if we want to do this in hex, oh man, they're such easy ones so far. This is 3, right? And we already had, actually we didn't have this one. What's this one? 8, yeah. So Such easy ones in hex. That's a shame. There'll be some harder ones later. Okay. This next one's a bit more challenging, but certainly doable, right? So when faced with a problem like this, what do you try to do? What are you trying to? What's the first step? Yeah.
Well, the first step is to find the highest power 2 that's not too big.
Right. So what is that in this case? What's the highest power 2 that's not too big? I'm sorry? 2 to the 18. And what is that value actually? 2 to the 18.
262141.
262141. Right. So that means that I'm going to be writing down 18 digits up here on the board in just a minute, right? It's kind of a lot. Maybe I'm not actually going to do that. I hope that you took the time to figure it out. And actually, this question, these two, probably especially this one right here, prompted a couple of people to ask me, you'd be allowed to use a calculator on the exams. The answer is, if I ask problems that are this large, yes. But if I only ask problems that are this large, then I'm not evil, guys. I'm not gonna screw you like that. So maybe, maybe not. We'll see. I haven't written the exam yet, but we'll see. So 18 digits here, right? What about this one? How many for that one? Somebody figured it out real quick. Yeah.
31 digits.
31 digits, and what are they?
They're all ones.
They're all ones. They're all ones. So the hard part here is figuring out that power of 2, or actually going 1 past that power of 2. So 2 to the 32 is this value plus 1, right? Which means I can use 31 bits that are all ones to represent this particular value. What is that in hex? 7 followed by 7 Fs. So we have a 7 on the very front because we don't have 4 ones at the end. We only have 3, right? And then a whole bunch of Fs after that. Because all ones is F. That's the best part. Right? Cool. Any questions about this? Questions? Okay. What's coming next is probably not going to be too surprising. So I'll let you take care of business. These shouldn't be as bad, hopefully. We'll find out. Yeah.
If calculators are allowed to test loading that like working you right.
So the reason that I'm probably not going to allow calculators on the test is because like a lot of calculators have binary exporter these days. And stuff. Probably won't be using calculators, or if anything, it'll be a very simple code.
Well,
The same amount of range.
for that.
Question? What's up? I'd like to see the whole thing mapped out.
Yeah.
Not that we try to
There's no, I think that's the next step.
Yeah, actually,
Our general sounds like
Go binary. like it was
It's about 40 zero.
yes.
It's not so bad going from
Is it always?
X to decimal.
Yeah, it's just a little bit tedious because you have to remember what each symbol represents.
In my
So, like,
opinion,
okay,
yes.
so
Power
14
16
times 16
basically.
squared.
Yeah.
So like
Eight
instead of
times
combining it.
Yes, even if I don't need the binary, I still probably would.
Okay.
Actually, I did in the
You did in this?
Yeah, I lied. Because then I thought of it, and I'm like, wait, no, that's
See,
not-
it sounds so bad.
Oh, no, this many digits, I was you do it. Because you know this one's just 16, and this one would be 30. Yeah. then we'll move on.
Yeah. I don't know. No, probably not.
It's forcing to memorize the target too, though.
Yeah, but I mean, memorizing the powers of two only gets so far, right?
It lets you go fast.
It helps. It helps.
I actually wasn't a big fan of the game. I mean, it was fine.
Swipe down left right strategy was too good. To get this game. My little 7-year-old brother is beating me. We're just going down left right this time.
I never win it, so I just writing a computer program that would win it.
Yeah.
That's my solution to my term.
That would be more fun than playing the game.
I got
Developing an algorithm to solve it.
Yeah, I wrote mine in Python.
Yeah. It's down, left, right, you're guaranteed to work. But Bill, sometimes, right? I mean, I feel like you could swap any combination if down, left, right, just as good luck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
down,
only
left,
one
right is a
direction.
specific combination. It's the only three directions.
It's excluding one direction, so you don't end up orbiting a certain one at the top and having to disrupt the purpose.
So much strategy behind this one.
The more conversion the game though is this version where you play as the computer and you play as the computer, and so you choose where to put things, and the computer plays against you. That's really hard.
No. There was some version that was like a 16 by 16, and it was like you did the 500. Yeah. So you're in. They have like a setting that you can let it auto run. I did
Okay.
it for like a week.
So I am interested in the answers to these, but I'm actually more interested in the process, right? The process for actually converting these. We've already talked about how to convert from binary to hex. That's not so bad, right? How do I convert from binary back to decimal? Can somebody explain the process for me? Yeah.
So binary values are kind of similar to decimal values, where the first digit represents the value of 2 to the 0. So you take the first digit times 2 to the 0 and add that to what the second digit represents, which is 2 to the 1. So 0 times 2 to the 1. And you continue to do that all the way through the number
Yeah.
and sum everything
So it
up.
becomes a sum, right? We go from right to left. So when we're going from decimal to binary, we actually construct it from left to right. But when we're going from binary back to decimal, it's usually easier to go from right to left. So we can do a couple of these. Right, the first one here, I've got a ones digit. So I've got a 1 there, plus 0 in the 2's place, plus 1 in the 4's place, plus 1 in the 8's place, plus 1 in the 16's place. I think that's about it, right? Plus a 0 in the 32's place, which doesn't really matter. Trailing zeros on the front are completely irrelevant in binary, so we've got 29, right? 29. And a similar process would get you through the rest of these. So did anybody figure this one out? What's this number? 2539? Sound right? 2523?
Somewhere in that range.
Uh-oh.
I trust you guys had a calculator.
I was off by a 16.
Off by a 16? Okay.
Still doesn't explain it.
Uh-oh. This isn't politics, right? We can't all have different opinions. There's actually one correct answer. 2523. Is that your final answer?
That's what the calculator says.
Okay.
I just missed lots of it.
Calculator's probably good. Yeah, 25, 23. So like I said, the actual values here, I'm not too concerned about. I'm more interested in the process, right? So are there any questions before we go on? One more slide of this kind of stuff, and then I promise we'll do something different. The nice thing about hex is you can actually spell words, right? There are There are lots more words that you can spell using hex than what you see up here. These are just some of the more common ones. So take a few minutes, see if you can figure these out. Going to binary is pretty easy, right? But how do you get to decimal? That's kind of the tricky part. We'll talk about it in a few.
I'm going left to right. Like I just start with one right and then one, zero right. It's like all left to right.
Oh, it's in that.
Yeah, just because it's easier to hit it. You could go right to left and start with that.
No, I'm saying that because I forget. There's one where you yeah, you basically vertical. I guess that's it.
Yeah, you go decimal.
So it's the first two gates.
I've been trying to
Is that the one? That's probably 1, 0, 0, 1. No.
1, 0, 1, plus.
Yeah. Those are the charts.
Yeah. We're all excessive for pictures now. Bigger than that.
You do a decimal levels too, or?
Yeah, I know that's good.
Good. I know.
Yes.
Leave, when you're writing in binary, you can leave for one as the beginning.
Right, yeah. In fact, really, you should probably chop off any leading zeros.
Like it doesn't mean it's like negative or anything like that.
So we haven't gotten to sign bits yet, but we certainly will.
So for now, it's fine.
For now, we can only represent positive values. We'll talk about that later. Okay. Like on the previous slide, I'm not as interested in the answers as in how you get to these answers, and that's where things get a little tricky. So, going from hex to binary, we haven't done that yet. We should probably do a couple of those, right? Is maybe the easy part. So let's try like cafe, for example. You can tell me what that's going to be in binary. I've got CAFE. Right? What am I going to do? Yeah.
Each digit in the hex number is 4 binary digits.
Right.
That correspond to the number that corresponds to.
Sure.
C in decimal is 12, and in binary it's 1100. So that's the first 4 bits.
Yep.
And then A is 1010. F is 41. And E is 1110. And that's
There we go. If you watched the video on Hexadecimal, which I hope you did, I highly encourage you to memorize these 4-digit binary values and their corresponding hexadecimal values. That is just, I hate to tell people to memorize things, but you should really memorize that because it's going to be in use so frequently in this class and probably other classes, other future classes as well. So being able to do that quickly is going to be a good skill to have, right? So hex to binary is not so bad. How do we do hex to decimal? What's your preferred way? Anybody want to venture? Oh, I'm seeing the same people. Yes?
I have a calculator, I do it similar. Same way you do binary to decimal, just instead of 2 to the something power, I do 16.
Yeah, so you have to do 16 to the something power, but that gets really unwieldy really quick, right? Like, what's this power? What's this right here? What place is that? Everybody figure it out?
16 to 7.
16 to the 7th power, which is what? Something very large, right? Billions? Trillions? I don't even know. Like, I don't know.
100
Times 10 to the what?
It's 100 million.
100 billions? Okay, yeah. So it's pretty large, right? It's a pretty large value. And then I have to multiply that by D, which is 13, right? So very large values that we're talking about here. What's the alternate route? Does anybody like the other way? I want to venture the other alternate path. Be kind of similar to what we talked about earlier, where I could actually just convert the binary value instead. That's actually how I tend to do it. I would tend to convert the hex to binary and then convert the binary to decimal. To me, going from binary to decimal and vice versa is just much easier than trying to do decimal to hex or binary or hex to decimal. Decimal and hex just don't play very well together, right? Base 10 and base 16, they don't get along very well. But base 2 and base 16 get along very well. So for me, any conversions between binary and hex are going to be easier. That's just my personal opinion. If you like doing it the other way, where you compute base 16, by all means, I'm not going to stop you. Yeah.
If you want to go into binary, be more unwieldy because you now have this gargantuan 32.
It's a lot of bits, right? 32 bits. Yeah, it's a lot of bits. It's going to be gigantic no matter
You need a
what.
calculator no matter what.
Yeah, you need a calculator. No, absolutely. I agree, guaranteed. But even for the 4-digit, like cafe, this isn't too bad, right?
Yeah, that's 16.
Kind of reaching the upper limit of what I can handle without a calculator, or what I'm willing to handle without a calculator. Let's put it that way, right? So, do whatever makes the most sense to you. And like I said earlier, the same rule applies as before. On exams, I'm either going to ask you stuff that's clearly not calculator required, or let you use the calculator for big stuff. Okay, any questions? Any questions? This should have hopefully helped you with the homework assignment as well. I mean, that's a lot of what the homework assignment covers. Let's do something different. So these, I want to do the first one of these together, actually, and then maybe I'll turn you loose on some of these other ones for a few minutes. So this relates to that money problem that people have been asking me a lot of questions about, right? how many bits of information are represented by each of these particular scenarios? So here I'm using passwords to exchange information. We all have hopefully lots of passwords, or maybe just the one, right? Depends on how you do it, I guess. I've got several, and I forget them all the time. So I create many, many more. That's just how it works. Better safe than sorry. But how secure are your passwords really? Right? That's the question. Do we want to create secure passwords? There was that huge, news story last week or the week before about the Ashley Madison site getting hacked and everybody's passwords released. And somebody went through and actually figured out what the most common password was, and of course it was password.
There's a wonderful list in there, the 10,000 most common passwords.
Yep, and password's always at the top of the list every single time. Every single time, right? Every single time. Which, I think even though they keep making a big, we're kind of getting off topic a little bit. I think even though they make a big deal about that point, for some people, they truly don't care, right? They sign up, like, you have to make an account on almost every website these days, and there are some websites where I'm just like, I don't care. I'm going to use some junk, crappy password, because even if somebody breaks into this website, then I'm only going to use once, like, it doesn't bother me. So, I think that's kind of inflating crappy password numbers to some extent. But there are people out there who are truly using QWERTY as a password. So, those people deserve to have their data stolen. Not really.
No, they do. No.
Yeah. So how secure are your passwords really? Well, let's see if we can figure out, some different configurations. I'm going to use 8 characters, right? And I'm going to restrict myself to only lowercase letters, which, a lot of people do. I only use lowercase letter. Password, 8 characters, all lowercase, right? That's what we're doing. Case number 1, right? So how many bits of information is this transferring? Or another way to think about it is, how many different combinations of such passwords exist? I saw a couple hands go up. I'm also interested in how we actually compute this, right? So yeah.
It's 8 bits, and the way you compute the number of bits is you take your 8 times your 26 characters, you take the log base 2 of that, and take the city.
Yeah, so I've got 8 characters. They can each be one of 26 values, right? They can each be one of 26 values. So what is it I need to multiply? How many different possible combinations is that? It's 20. Is it 8 times 26? It's 26 to the 8th power, right? Which is actually a pretty large number. These are calculator problems for sure. Right? We're already in calculator range. 26 to the 8th power is pretty large. So you have the process down though, right? So once I have that value, I then need to figure out, right, what's the largest power of 2 that covers that particular number. Did anybody figure it out? 32? 32? Okay. So 32 bits of information, right? 32 bits of information is what we say. Now, we have to be careful here. I keep saying 32 bits of information, but that's not actually how many bits the password requires to be stored, right, in a database or on disk somewhere, right? Does anybody know how many bits a single character is going to take in most cases? 8 bits, right? We use the ASCII system for most things. There's also Unicode, which is larger, but we use ASCII for most things, which is 8 bits per character, right? 8 bits per character. So in that particular case, there's actually a lot of bits required to store this password. 8 times 8. There's I'm sorry, math is failing me at the moment. There's 64 different bits required to store the physical password itself. But that password is only conveying, what do we say, 32? 32 bits of information because we've restricted our character set to be only lowercase letters. Yes?
Why is it 32? Because 2 to the 32 is quite a bit smaller than 26.
Is it? Somebody lied to me there. I feel deceived.
It's 38.
It's 38? Okay, thanks. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to imply somebody lied to me. Making mistakes is perfectly okay. That's how we learn, right? It's okay. It's all right. So 26 to the 8th power, whatever the power of 2 is that can cover that, right? And I heard it's 38 now. Is that what is that our final answer? 38.
So I think the smallest power of 2 that can cover it, that's bigger than it.
Smallest power of 2 that's larger than this number. Yes.
So formula-wise, log-based.
Log-based.
Take the ceiling of that.
Log base 2, right, take the ceiling. Yep.
I misunderstood what question you got.
Yes. That's okay. Not a problem. This is the time to make mistakes, right? Absolutely. So, with that in mind, that was just for lowercase letters. Yeah, question?
As the approach to this first problem, right? Then if you're using lowercase, if you were going to represent each character with like a certain number of bits, like if you were saying before, each ASCII character takes 8 bits.
Right.
Why wouldn't you just do that to the same, like apply the same kind of logic to this first problem? So for instance, if you wanted only lowercase letters, that would be 26. You need 5 bits to represent each letter. And you need 40 bits because you have 8 letters.
Because in this particular case, I'm not concerned with how the letters themselves are represented.
Oh, okay.
I'm concerned with the total number of representations that exist. Yes. That's a great question, and it's an important distinction to make. Yes. Very good question. Did everybody understand that? He was asking, why don't we just count each letter as being 5 bits? Because we can use 5 bits to represent a single letter of the alphabet, right? And then use that as the basis for how many bits we have, multiply that up by 8 and get our answer. Which you'll notice they actually get pretty close, right? They get fairly close. But it's not quite the same thing. And under this particular scheme, I don't care how the actual letters are represented. That's not my problem. I'm interested in how many different password combinations there are and how many bits I need to represent those combinations, right? Any other questions before I turn you loose? So these are definitely calculator problems, right? You see that I increase the amount of characters you have available at each step along the way. So take a few minutes. I hope these don't take too long. Take a few minutes though and see if you can figure out how many bits it'll take for the rest of these, and we'll talk about it in a little bit.
So you can use 7 bits. That's 64.
I know it's Okay, so it's 6 bits. Yeah, it only goes up by 2 bits.
Computer, how much space is taken up by an acre?
Yeah, it's like how many. Oh, yeah. No, that's not weird. It's like how many things does one for some reason, we get 2 more.
I guess it doesn't work because this is supposed to be number 46.
Yeah.
I guess that's why.
I mean, we're rounding.
I mean, the way you did it.
It's always afraid of no, like, I don't doubt that you know that. Do you remember it right now? Like, you should and then unless you do this column. So yeah, so take 46.
130.
Yeah, but if we went to 62,
Didn't last long.
Yeah,
still with
I think unless there's something special around this, it should be still 60.
Yeah, it's essentially the first one.
Just what you were saying, change the date. Which is like,
Yeah,
otherwise,
it's good. It's good.
And is not happening.
Still 6 bits. That's huge. And then convert it, we got 62.
Do you mean like is it okay to
So
do all the same? Yeah, because they're all the same. Okay,
Yeah, like
so if like this is like connected,
Okay, who's got some answers for me? What if I can throw uppercase characters into the mix? Then how many bits of information do I have here? Yeah, go ahead. 46. Okay.
we don't want these
46. Does that mesh with what you guys found? Okay, what if I throw digits in the mix? Then what?
48.
48. So you see that adding digits just gets me 2 more bits, right, than the previous one. What about the 10 additional special characters?
50, please.
How many? 50?
50 more bits.
50? Is that right? Okay. So you'll see that, you know, adding additional characters does make a difference, right? That's more possible combinations of passwords. It's a more secure password, right? It's definitely a more secure password. What about this last one? Anybody figure this one out? 113. And that's with only lowercase letters. So think about how many possible combinations are represented by this number of bits. It's way, way larger than any of these, right? So even though whenever you make a password, they always say, toss in some numbers, toss in some special characters to make it extra secure. The best thing you can do to make your password secure, even if you want to forget about those special characters, is to make it longer. Yes?
That being said, it would just be a little bit misleading.
Oh, yes. Can you explain why? That was my next question.
A couple reasons. One, first, in one direction, if you add extra characters, people aren't going to use them very often, so you don't have to check them as often. What I mean is, if it's not mandatory that you add numbers, for example, to an alphanumeric password, the easiest way to try to crack a large number of passwords is just ignore the numbers altogether, because most people won't be using them.
Sure.
And then secondarily, when you do the calculation for how many bits, each one is, when you're like, okay, so this requires 6 bits to store 11, for example. A certain number of those are going to be unused because there isn't a character assigned.
Well, so there are unused ones, absolutely, yeah. But in terms of bits of information, right? So it's not exactly the same as total number of combinations, but it's definitely there's a relationship there, right? This is a generalized way of talking about the number of combinations available, right? It's easier than saying there are 2,875,000,000, whatever. There's actually another very important assumption that I'm making here that's actually probably not true in the majority of cases. Spot it? Yeah. The passwords in this particular case could be any combination of 8 characters. How often do you pick, Pahobogads as a password? That's actually not the best example, right? But you kind of get what I mean, right? You don't just sit there and type out random gibberish for your passwords. You probably choose words. You probably choose words for at least part of it, right? Maybe not the whole thing. but you probably are choosing things that you're going to remember, right? Because you need to remember that password, and you're not going to remember that password if it's a bunch of random junk. So it's actually worse. It's actually worse than this. If you restrict yourself to using only words like common English words, the number of bits of entropy goes down quite significantly. In fact, there was a very famous XKCD comic about this very topic. Here we see using an English word. I can't count quite how many bits. My eyes aren't that good, but it's significantly less than the number of bits that we've included up here, right? So it's a lot fewer bits. They add some other of the more common things. Is something capitalized or not? That's an extra bit, right? Of entropy. It's either caps or it's not. Are numbers or special characters substituted in for letters? There's a few extra bits there if you decide to do stuff like that. Or swapping the order of particular values, right? Adds a few extra bits. But for these kinds of passwords, right, you can see they do the math here. It's actually still pretty easy to crack those secure passwords with all the numbers and characters and everything involved. It's actually better to make longer passwords, even if you're just using common words. These are 4 common words, right? Now, you got to be careful. You don't want to make a sentence, right? You don't want to make a common English sentence. That's still probably bad in terms of security. But just 4 common words by themselves is a significant amount of entropy in relation to this shorter but secure, right, quote-unquote password. So, keep that in mind the next time you're creating passwords. And now that you know that, I hope you don't try to go all hack my passwords.
That being said, don't choose the phrase correct course battery stable.
Yeah,
because that has become one of the most common passwords.
I would imagine that it has, actually. I would imagine that password is now no longer an appropriate choice to make. Yes? Sure. So the reason why it's not 5 bits per letter times 8 letters is because in this particular scenario, I don't care how the letters themselves are represented. That doesn't matter to me. I care how many possible password combinations there are. The way the letters are stored is irrelevant. So it becomes 26 to the 8th power, and then we use that to determine the number of bits. And like I said, it's very close, right? 38 to 40. It's in the same ballpark, and it usually will be in the same ballpark, but it's not exactly the same. This is the correct answer. 28 to the 8th power is huge, and then I have to find the largest power of 2 that covers that number, which is 2 to the 38th. Yep. Any other questions about this? Okay. I have a fun little treat to end the day today. I need to start something up here. While this is loading, I'll kind of explain what's happening. So we spent all this time learning hexadecimal, but actually, in previous courses, I spent a lot of time explaining why binary is so important. And now I'm pushing all this hexadecimal stuff. And actually, you're going to be using hexadecimal quite a bit in future assignments. And so the question is why? Why are we doing this, right? Well, it makes it easy to talk about binary. It makes it easy to understand what's happening inside of a computer. So I'm trying to give you an example of how hexadecimal is used. And one of to me anyway, one of the more interesting ways that hexadecimal is used is to hack video games. So what I'd like to show you for the rest of the class today is actually how to hack some video games using hexadecimal. So let me load this up real quick, and then we'll see what we can do. If I can get this to resize properly here. Come on now. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to be focusing on the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, right? That's the system that I grew up playing back in the early 90s. So it's also very easy to work with. That's part of the reason I chose it. Unfortunately, there are very severe legal ramifications involved with downloading Nintendo games on the internet. So I'm going to be showing you some homebrew today. Don't go home and hack Nintendo games. That's against the law. I do not condone that behavior whatsoever, but this would totally work if you ever find yourself in the situation of needing to do something like that. So I have what's called an emulator, right? I actually have an NES at home that I play all the time, but it's I didn't want to carry that on the train with me on the way to work today, so I'm going to use an emulator, which is literally trying to replicate the NES hardware. Any hardware circuit can be represented in software. Any software can be represented as hardware. That's one of the points that I hope you take out of this class, right? So how's this going to work? I'm going to load up a game here in just a second, and then I'll actually be able to examine the memory of the Nintendo as this game is running, and I'll be able to manipulate those values to produce some hopefully beneficial effects. So let me go ahead and load up the game. The game that we're going to play is called Jet Paco Space Agents. Right? And I don't know how to get sound out of this thing. I don't know if that's even a thing that can happen, but let me see if I can get sound out of here real quick. Oh, hey, cool, it works. Awesome. So this is Jet Paco. This is not a Nintendo, an official Nintendo game in any capacity. This is homebrew. Somebody made this actually this year. There are still people developing games for 20-year-old video game platform. So this is Jet Paco. Let me play it for you real quick. Just give you a quick demo. I forgot to bring my controller today, but here's Paco.
You have the best job.
Here's Paco, and Paco has a jetpack on, and he can float around, right? And if you hit the spiky balls or the enemies, you lose a life. You can see I've got my life counter in the bottom right corner, right? And the whole goal of the game is to collect these crystals, of which there are 20. So there's 20 crystals just laying around. And when you find all 20 crystals, then you win the game. That's basically it. If you run out of lives, I'm not very good at this game. Well, actually, I'm really good at this game, as you're about to see. I'm like the best at it. So I found a crystal, right, and I died a bunch. He's pretty fragile. He doesn't have a gun or anything. He's just got the jetpack, and that's it. So
It would be nice to get more lives.
well, I mean, so that's kind of Jet Paco in a nutshell. Let's see what we can do in terms of hacking this thing. This emulator comes with a hex editor. So let me reset this. Let me reset this game so we get a fresh start, right? Let me go ahead and start this. So this is the actual internal contents of the Nintendo as this game is running. You can see some values are changing because it's actually going through instructions, right, to play the music, to draw the screen, right? I may be interested in giving more lives to myself, right? That's something that I might want to do. But I have 10 lives. That's in decimal. What's 10 in hexadecimal? A. So if I maybe want to find out where lives are in memory, I need to look for 0A somewhere in memory. Now the problem is that 0A, probably shows up quite a few places, right, inside of this memory. So I actually had to go through and just by trial and error, right, keep trying to change them. There's actually a find. Let me see here. I can actually go to find, right? Type in 0A, and it'll find the next one, right? So here it is, right? I can just type in 0B, right, and see what happens. It's actually in real time. So, oh shoot, I don't know what I changed. I changed something. Hopefully it doesn't crash it, right? So I actually just had to go through trial and error until I found the right one. Well, I'm going to save us some time. I actually did find the right one. Let me close out this find replace thing. It's actually pretty close to the top. Over here on the left side, these are memory locations, and the memory location that we want is at 8B. So this is row 8, and 8B is, let's see, right? Oh, it's off the side of the screen. Let me scoot this over. Here it is, 8B. Hey, look, that's 0A, right? That's 0A. So let me change this. I want a lot of lives. What's a good number? What's 100? Well, I don't know if it'll do 100. It's only 2 digits.
Let's just do FF.
I mean, okay, let's do FF. Let's see what happens. FF, and now I have I5 lives. I think that'll last me a while. I don't know what I is. That's not hex, right? But now, I mean, it's still working. I have I4, I3, right?
Wait, so what happens if you go past the 0 and 3?
What happens if I do what now? Oh, what happens? Okay, let's try it. Yeah, that's a good question. You have to wait till he stops flashing, right? All right, one more. All right, so H. Yeah.
So it's
You expect. So, okay. So I've got enough lives now, right? And so I could very easily go through the game and try to find all the crystals, right? Try to find all the crystals and beat the game, but that actually would take too long. I think that would take too long. In fact, I tried it and it did take too long. It was, you know, this game is fine. It's not the most fun game in the world, but so, you know, I tried to find where the crystals are next. And so my next question is, you know, what's 20 in hexadecimal? Can you tell me what 20 is in hexadecimal? 14, right? So you think that the same process would work. I could go through and I could look for 14 in the memory and start changing those values. Eventually I'd find the one that represents crystals, I could change it, and it would be done. There was a problem with that. That was actually what I tried to do at first. There was a problem with that. I'm trying to collect crystals, but this timer goes down. This is how many crystals I have left, right? So it actually is keeping track of how many I've found and subtracting that from 20 to make this number. So I have to look for 0, 0, which is everywhere, right? There are a ton of 0, 0s. However, the nice thing about hacking games is usually this kind of stuff is pretty close by. So you should just look at some of the neighbors. I know where lives are. So crystals is probably pretty close by. In fact, lives was at 8B.
Don't get the first crystal and find what goes down.
Yeah, that's another great point. I could collect something and then see what changes. The problem with that is a lot of stuff is changing, as you can see in here.
But it wouldn't be changing before you got it, so you could describe all the other changes.
Sure, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You can do that. I think it's actually quicker to just check nearby values. In fact, lives is what's highlighted. Right? Actually, that's not lives. Lives is, where are my lives? F9, yeah. So that's lives. Actually, AA right next door is crystals. So that's 20, right? Or that's 0. That's 0. I collected 0 crystals. I want to collect 20. I want to collect 20 crystals. So let me type 14 in here, and that should do it for me. Oh, hey, look.
Also,
Congratulations. Congratulations. I found all the crystals. I am really, really good at this game. I had I5 lives when I did it. You know? That's not all you can do. So, you know, everything in the entire game is represented in this memory. The graphics, right? The graphics are in here as well, so you can manipulate that stuff too. It's actually locations pointing to graphics. So if I reset this here, right? Let me reset. And I found where they store, Mission B is actually easier to show you this part. I found where they store the location to the graphics for Paco. Right? So I can make Paco be other stuff if I want to. So, you know, as a matter of fact, so that location is at A8, which is, where is A8? A8 is right here, right? So I can do other cool things with Paco, like change him to monsters if I want to. So now he's actually the same monster that's on the screen, kind of, but he changes as it goes. Right? So what is happening? It's pointing to the location of the sprite for Paco. Paco actually has multiple sprites. He's got left facing, right facing, and when he's in the air, right? So when Paco moves, it just looks at the one that's right next door. And all of these enemy sprites then must be right next to one another, so that when Paco turns, it's pulling up the next enemy sprite and the one after that, right? So that's what's happening. And you can actually get some really weird effects by changing these values. Like, for example, let's see, what's a weird one? Is that a weird one? Oh, he's walking backwards now. Yeah, moonwalking Paco. I like that one. There was another one. Oh yeah, this one was the really weird one where, oh shoot, I broke it, sorry, okay. That happens. I mean, that's part of ROM hacking, right? Is sometimes you're going to break it. One more thing I want to show you before I let you guys, or you can leave whenever you want, I don't care, but one last thing that I can show you, text. Text can be manipulated as well. It's a little trickier, right? It's a little trickier because this game doesn't have text built in. It actually has to draw the text on screen just as if it were any other graphic, right? However, the text itself that it wants to draw is actually stored in memory, and then there's a subroutine that converts it into a graphic that gets drawn on the screen. So I can still go in and find the text and change it. I can't change it while this is running. The text is in a special protected part of the ROM, right? It's actually in hardware, right? That can't be changed during runtime. So what you have to do is actually export this to a file, open it up in a hex editor, and then change the text, and then reopen that new ROM, which is exactly what I did. So, let me show you the before and after. Right? We saw Jetpaco Space Agent, Hyper Special Space Agent says on the screen. Well, I can change whatever I want. So let me load up my modified copy of this here. Oops, that's not what I want. Let me open up. Which one was it? I guess it's this one. Yeah. So it's time to get swifty. Hey, anyway, and so you can. So then, if I go and beat the game in this version, which doesn't take me too long. What location was the crystals? 8A, right? 8A. That's right here. So that was 14. Congratulations. Now you can stop playing and go do your homework. Get out of here. We're done. Thank you, guys. I'll see you in class on Thursday.
That was great.
How'd you like that?
I'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah, see you Thursday.